Okay, recording. Great. So I am Paige Calvert. I'm the manager of our documentation team here at Replicated, and this session is all about creating great installation docs for your users. First, I wanted to just give you all a little bit of background about what we at the Replicated Docs team do. And a lot of that centers around docs.replicated.com. So we launched this site just earlier this year with the goal of providing replicated software vendors with a one-stop shop where you can ideally find all the information that you need in order to be successful with Replicated. And that also includes all the information that your end users need in order to successfully use replicated features. I've also included a bit of information here about our tech stack, which is just as a reference to you if it's something that's interesting. The main thing that I wanted to point out is that our documentation is hosted on a public GitHub repository, which means we accept pull requests from anyone at Replicated, outside of Replicated, who's using the product. And I wanted to highlight that because I think it really speaks to our emphasis on documentation at Replicated as really a part of the product and a part of the user experience. And that's part of the reason why writing these installation docs is so critical. It's, again, part of that good user experience. So with that little bit of background out of the way, let's jump into writing docs for your users. Objectives. I will first review the key resources that are available to you as a software vendor to help you write your docs. I'm going to give a sample outline for a basic good set of installation docs, and then we will go through that sample outline line by line, and I'll tell you how to write each item using the resources. All right, starting off, resource number one, back to docs.replicated.com, and specifically the enterprise section. So this enterprise section, which you can see in one of these screenshots here, it provides all of the information that your end users need to know about app installation, management, monitoring your application, all of that good stuff. The other key part that I wanted to, or the other key resource on docs.replicated.com for you as you're writing end user documentation is the COTS-CLI reference docs, which include all the information about the COTS-CLI commands, flags, and that's meant as a supplement to the enterprise documentation. So the key thing to keep in mind with this resource here, this docs.replicated.com enterprise and COTS-CLI documentation, is that it is genericized, right? So this is going to cover all of the information that has to do with the functionality of the replicated features. Anything app specific becomes something that you add on to this, but docs.replicated.com is a great starting place. So with that said, the second resource that I wanted to call out are these docs templates. So the docs team here created a set of templates that you can use to write that app-specific documentation. So if you think about starting with the information that's in docs.replicated.com, these templates then become, okay, how do I put all the stuff that's specific to my application in there? You can find these on, this is a GitHub repository, which I'll pull up here real quickly, this vendor docs starter public GitHub repository. And I'll come back to these later, but just to show you. So you can find these on that public repository where you can, of course, open any issues or pull requests or any requests that you have really for those templates. We created these based on replicated docs as well as existing vendor documentation that we thought was really strong. Okay, as promised, a sample docs outline. So this is, again, a set of installation docs that you might write for your users. It's touching on all of the key pieces that goes into that. And what I'm saying outline here, you can picture this as the hierarchy of the documentation. So a lot of times the docs website will have that navigation on the left side of the screen, and you can kind of picture this outline being that high-level navigation. Okay, first up, requirements and prerequisites. So requirements are specifications that the user's environment must meet, and prerequisites being actions that the user needs to take ahead of time, whether that's gathering information, downloading and installing a CLI, something like that. The first part of good installation docs always includes this information that users need to know up front. It is super helpful for making sure that that your users don't make it like halfway through your docs before they realize that they're not meeting a certain requirement, or they didn't do something ahead of time and now they have to start all over. So really important to keep this information up front. For writing your requirements and limitations, we have a template here, which I will open quickly. I won't go all the way through it. This is, well, let me go into the edit mode actually, so you can see a little bit more of the commenting. So our installation requirements and prerequisites topic is, of course, going to be a combination of replicated standard requirements. And then you're going to want to add to that any app-specific requirements or prerequisites that you have. So the template outlines both of those things. It includes sections that are standard to replicated, which you can copy the content right from these links here. And then it also includes some placeholder sections where you can go in and insert your own app-specific information, and it provides some examples to help get you started. All right, next up, installing the replicated components. So after all of the requirements and prerequisites are out of the way, the next step is users running those install commands to actually install the replicated components. For this section of the docs, think about all of the installation methods that you support, whether that's air gap, existing cluster created by the Kubernetes installer. You're going to want to have a section in your docs that touches on all of those. Luckily, this is generally pretty non-app specific content. So for writing this initial install phase of, hey, run that command, you can reference the docs.replicated.com enterprise documentation and use that pretty directly. So I've provided the links both to the public site and the source on GitHub for those topics here. All right, next step, configuring and deploying the application. So this is the next stage of installing your app with Replicated. This involves the very app-specific steps of filling out that configuration screen that appears in the admin console. And depending on the needs of your application, the process of configuring can involve filling out quite a few fields. And it might also involve a really non-trivial amount of effort, information gathering, decision-making on the part of your end user. So it's really great to have detailed documentation that provides guidance to your users on how to fill out these fields. For this topic, we have a template here, again, because this is really app specific. It's not something that would show up in, I'll just go like this, not something that would show up in docs.replicated.com. So we have a template that, again, has guidance all through the comments, has examples, and provides a sample outline of how we think you should or a really great way actually to lay out this information and make it easy for your users to follow along with the docs and configure your application. At the bottom here, we also provide some sample, just kind of boilerplate text that's pretty genericized about the step for passing the pre-flight checks and actually deploying the application after completing the configuration screen. So this is this part is more of a copy paste. Okay, last couple sections here are all about troubleshooting. What happens when things don't go quite as planned. First, generating a support bundle should always be one of the first steps that your users are taking when things aren't working correctly. To that end, in your documentation, you should have a topic that explains to them how to generate a support bundle. Another tip here is to use the message field in the manifest for your support bundle to explain or to provide some initial guidance to your users on what's going on with those errors or warnings. Here, again, generating a support bundle is pretty standard content across all applications. So you can copy pretty directly from these links down here that I've provided on how to generate a support bundle using both the admin console UI and also, importantly, how to do it using the CLI if that admin console is not available. Finally, troubleshooting. So this is as a supplement to your support bundle. You can also provide a separate troubleshooting topic for your users. And this is a really great way if you need to provide a little bit more in-depth information beyond what fits in that message field. A tip here is that you can actually just link to this troubleshooting doc that you write directly from those messages that you provide in the support bundles or pre-flight checks. This, again, pretty app specific. Oops. So we have a template here that you can use for troubleshooting. We like to use a really standard, clean format of symptom, cause, solution. This makes it super easy for your users to be able to just do a Command F or Control F on the page, plug in the exact error message that they're seeing and get taken to specific information about what's causing that and what are the steps that I need to take to remediate the issue. Okay, with that, we finished our installation docs. Easy as that. Real quick, before questions, we really value your feedback at Replicated in general, and I can speak for the docs team in particular that this site was launched pretty early this year. So it's still new. There's still a lot of improvements that we're excited to make. And as part of that, we would love to hear from you. Every page in the doc site has buttons at the bottom where you can propose a change, which lets you open a pull request, or you can also provide feedback, which lets you open an issue and you can just provide any feedback you'd like. I also wanted to plug, again, you can provide feedback on those templates, which are also pretty new in this vendor doc starter repo by creating an issue. Okay, thank you all. And I think we have some time for questions.
Not really a question, more of a comment, but this is super cool. Thank you, Paige.
Thanks, Dex. Yeah, I'm excited to see people start using these templates. Like I said, they're a brand new thing. So really interested to see what people think, what else we can add to them, how we can develop this repo more to make it easy to just plug and play with docs.
I have a question for the audience, if no one has anything. I see some folks in here that I recognize are fairly new to Replicated in the last 3 to 6 months who here procrastinated writing their customer-facing documentation. You don't have to admit it. Yeah.
Define procrastinating, because We definitely had it working and replicated before we started writing docs. I think just for me, just to share something that awesome about the vendor starter documentation that might have been mentioned to me at some point, but I completely lost track of it. So we'll definitely be looking at that. And thank you for the example kind of layout of the one thing we didn't think is specific instructions just for air gap. We always figured the customer would just be talking to us in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing I think I might have just missed the enterprise install docs. Are you saying that should be that's customer facing, or is that just for us as vendors?
That should be customer facing.
Cool.
So yeah. So any of those steps of like, here's this command that you as a vendor grabbed from the vendor portal and you're providing for your end users. Here's this command, here's how you run it, here's how you access the admin console after running that command. Those sort of customer facing initial install steps are all on docs.replicated.com.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and definitely let us know. I doubt anyone mentioned the templates to you actually, because they were created like last week. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah, no, I definitely I appreciate it, because actually I just finished making the initial for us internally the install docs, just to have our internal users testing out the builds. So it's a great time for us to get that kind of information.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, let us know. Reach out in that repo or however, and let us know how it goes. That's great.
Yeah, and if you want feedback, just share it directly if you're interested.
Yes, please.
One thing, and I actually shared it and it was resolved, so I appreciate it. I shared that the config options, that there just wasn't a lot of screenshots of what config options look like, which is just nice to see, so that I don't have to create it just to see what it looks like and then decide if I want to use it, but the screenshots in general would help. And then in the template functions, there's a lot of good information in there, but there could probably be more just like practical examples of like 2 or 3 use cases for how you would use one of the functions and not just a single one, because there are a number where we figured out really neat tricks, but it's only kind of like combinations of commands or just something more advanced than what it shows. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, examples are a huge focus. We've been hearing that feedback for sure. And thanks, that was you who provided the feedback about the screenshots. That was spot on and totally something we should have already had there. So
yeah, no worries. I'm a serial complainer, so more than willing to complain formally via issues. But yeah, no, it was just because we've been doing, our config, we've gotten crazy with the config screen and nested items and this and that controls, and just some of them, like I think the one I've never seen working was the aligning something to the right and to the left. And like see that is helpful.
Nice.
Yeah, and I would echo that, being able to provide feedback directly on the pages like that, consider that for your docs as well, because that's something that we introduced to actually just make it faster to understand and act on that feedback. When feedback was coming in through other channels, it's like, wait, which page are they referring to? What section are they referring to? And so adding the provide feedback straight on every page that actually comes in with the issue tied to the page has definitely become a best practice for us. And you mentioned writing install docs to start to have users walk through it. I think that's another best practice as well, as like write your application install docs along with the replicated components, and like actually have someone on your team or someone that wasn't as involved go off and try to use just those docs to install the application. That can be a great way to validate it before you publish it out to your users, particularly because one of our big learnings was one of the things that Paige and team have been really helpful with at Replicated is our original documentation was definitely not task-based. And so they've been helping us start to do more task-based documentation, like, this, go here, step 1, do this should happen. Step 2, do this should happen. And since you are, conceivably writing your docs from scratch now, as much as you can do that from the beginning to write it very process and task-based, that's a good best practice too. It can really cut down on confusion and escalation from your end customers.
I just thought I'd add to really recommend starring or watching these couple of GitHub repos so that when Paige makes great updates to these repos, you can see what's going on and update your docs too with all of the awesome things she's doing. So
Yes, good call. Thank you, Ian.
If this might be a stupid question, are your actual docs just overall public? Because sometimes as a sometimes I'll see like typos and stuff, and on occasion when I see it, I usually look to commit it. Is there a way to commit, like if I find anything?
Ooh, yes, do that. So let's say there's a typo on this page. I would scroll down to the bottom and click propose changes.
Oh, so you already covered that. Yeah, sorry, when you said propose, it didn't register. Okay.
Yeah, it's not very clear. It's not like open a PR, like propose changes. Yeah. So you can go in here and just fix the typo and submit it, and we would be eternally grateful.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thanks. Any other thoughts, questions? It doesn't even have to just be about install docs. It could be about documentation in general, something else you would love to see us focus on.
Hey, Paige, can you hear me?
Hi, Joe. Yes.
Hey, good. Hey, yeah, so we're kind of doing a POC with Replicate at this point, and our cloud product has a lot of setting up docs, and it's all, we have it all documented out in Zendesk.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of sitting through here, and I know you've got your, basically you've got your way of building up the docs here within Replicate for some of our, for basically an on-premise customer. Is there a way we can kind of port some of that documentation? Because it's going to be kind of the same for our cloud customers as it is for our on-prem customers. Is there a way we can actually do a port from Zendesk, either through APIs or something, directly back into this project here to be able to generate that doc to be shipped out with the on-premise for our customers? Or
That is a really good question. I'm not familiar with Zendesk. What is the what is it XML or Markdown, or what is the?
Yeah, a lot of it's all Markdown, but there's a whole load of APIs that we can call call documents up from it too. One of my developers on my support team kind of knows a lot more on it, but we can definitely investigate it more. But I didn't know if there's a way we can port that across, because that way all our docs we kind of maintain in Zendesk. But if we wanted to like pull out a new release, then we could get this to pull from Zendesk all our updated documentation, ship it out with our product. If this is something that's possible or not. But anyways, just a question.
And so you're looking to pull from Zendesk to a different docs website, or pulling information from this replicated
Well, the
docs
key
repo
stuff,
to
like all the
Zendesk?
getting started and the setup guides and everything else, because a lot of it's going to be similar. So it'd be nice if we could just pull it from an existing repository versus generating two.
Yes, that would be ideal. That's totally something we're thinking about, like in the longer term, how can we maybe turn this vendor doc starter repo into something that people can maybe just fork and use to create their own site and pull in sources from wherever they want. I think right now it would probably be a fairly manual process, unfortunately. I'm not sure if anyone else in the room has thoughts or ideas around it. Negative. No, Ian, what do you think?
yeah, but I mean, so I think merging two sets of docs is the right idea, right? So that you're getting, the latest reference guides. So some of these docs are going to be too customized for a merge to be instantaneous, right? To just be like, I'm just going to take the updates, and something like where it actually talks about like installing your app and things like that. But a lot of the content should be instantly mergeable, and you could probably merge either way fairly easily with some scripts, would be my guess, right? Like if it's already Markdown and this is Markdown, it's just a matter of determining which direction you want to go. Do you want to go to Zendesk, or do you want to go to a third party documentation provider? and just kind of, yeah, and just setting up some scripts to go either way. It'd be some custom work, you know, for every particular setup, but seems very doable.
Okay. That sounds good.
Thank you. And I think we're going to get booted in a few seconds here, but thank you all very much. I hope to see you all on our replicated docs repo. Should we exit, I suppose?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.